and friends, and welcome to The World Transformed. Tonight we're talking about monsters. Never tell me the odds. My name is Phil Bowermaster, and with me in the virtual studio is my co-host, Stephen Gordon. Hello, Stephen.
Hey, Phil. How are you?
Well, I am super fantastic. Happy Friday. How are you, my friend?
Feeling monstrous or something. I don't know.
Monstrously good. Yeah.
Yes,
we promised a big geek out, and a big geek out we are delivering. We're going to go deep into one of our favorite topics here, and that is the monsters. We're going to talk about a little cryptozoology, and we were talking before the show, maybe as a nice lead-in to that, we're going to estimate the odds on some of our favorite creatures, whether they actually exist or not. You had some thoughts on where this whole discussion belongs, I guess, in the greater kind of scientific landscape, right?
Right. Well, I looked up the current accepted number, or the current estimate is 6.5 million land species in the world and 2.2 million ocean species. So, put that together. What do you got? 8.7 million species in the world. And
wow, so there's a lot more interesting. Let's stop there for a moment. There's a lot more creatures living on land than in the water.
Yeah, which is surprising, isn't it?
I wouldn't have guessed that.
Well, I guess in some ways there's lots of different environments, on land.
On land, that's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
And so lots of different niches for creatures to evolve into. And here's the interesting thing for purposes of our discussion tonight, Phil. 86% of species on land and 91% of those in the seas, if these numbers are correct, have yet to be discovered, described, and cataloged. So.
So we got a lot of work to do.
Zoologists need to, get out of the library and do like Indiana Jones said. You need to get out of the library and get in the field, right?
Get in the field, do some work here. However, as interesting as that is, it means we only know about 10% of all the. We've only identified about 10% of all the species in the ocean, but they're not expecting to find plesiosaurs in the ocean, right? They're not expecting to find giant reptiles or any of the interesting things we're going to get to here in a moment. It just means that they haven't classified everything there, right? That there's a lot of them that we know they're there, and they're probably a lot like the ones we know about, mostly, although there might be some different animals in there, but mostly a lot like the ones we know about, but we don't know what they are. But every now and then they do find something that's really unexpected, don't they?
A coelacanth was discovered and cataloged and everything in the 1930s, I believe. So it was thought to have been extinct for millions of years. It is probably the closest thing still existing to the creatures that first began crawling up on the land. It is more like those creatures than any other fish. And, it has a lung and lots of primitive features in this fish. And so I found it interesting reading about it. That order, because there's only two known species in that order, it is the order that is most endangered in the world. It just very, very few individuals in either of the two species in that entire order, and if they go extinct, that whole order is gone. And definitely the waning days of that. Once upon a time, they were numerous, but not.
Well, I hope they hang in. I hope we keep it going. But even if they go extinct today, they made it 66 million years longer than we originally thought. Right, so
that's right. True.
They had quite a run. They've been around for 400 million years, these fish, which is, I guess, a good reason why you should really try to keep them going.
It'd be a shame if we did them in here at the end of their run or something, that we did cause their demise. That would be bad.
Absolutely.
And there's other weird things. Frilled sharks, very strange looking, and have a lot of primitive features that you wouldn't expect to find in modern day sharks.
And they look like monsters, right? I mean, you look at one of those and you think, well, that's a sea monster right there. I mean, and they just discovered those not that long ago, 10 years ago, something like that. They're
so deep. They like to swim in depths that we don't normally go to, and so it's just hard.
The first time I ever saw one is they caught one in Tokyo while I was there. And it was a big news story, and it was just a coincidence. But I kept seeing this picture of this weird sea monster, and it was like, they just caught this thing. And I guess it was the first one that had been caught in like 30 years or something like that. So it's
right.
It just goes to show you there are weird things out there that are rarely seen. So really, we've only discovered 10% of all the animals. So this is really making the case. I think you are making the case for the likelihood of our monster friends. Is that where you're going with this, Stephen?
I think I want to make the case that there is a vast difference between cryptozoology and zoology, even though you would think that there should be some overlap. Both cryptozoologists and zoologists are interested in species that have yet to be classified, but the similarity stops there. You know, cryptozoologists don't follow the scientific method. They're interested in these particular creatures, that, like the ones we're going to talk about tonight, just because, they are.
Because they're awesome. That's why they're interested in them. The same reason we're interested in them.
They're just not accepted as part of the scientific community, and they're not even considered to be a branch of folklore study, which you could make an argument that they're part of that, because part of what they're looking for, if a cryptozoologist got real interested in mermaids, well, maybe the reason he's interested in that is the folklore of mermaids or something.
Exactly.
Right?
Or maybe he's really lonely. Did you ever think of that? He might be
he's been at sea too long, and
he could be a very lonely person. There's a lot of reasons, but I've had to give him the folklore thing. I mean, it's one or the other, right? It's got to be one or the other. I will say this: there have been historical instances where legendary creatures turned out to be real. In ancient times, the giraffe was believed to be a mythical creature. Turns out, lo and behold, hey, they actually have them down there in Africa, right? It's a real thing. Even the oliphant, right, was as much a mythical creature as it was a real creature in a lot of Europe until Hannibal, right?
Hannibal,
he proved to the Romans that the elephants were real. Later, even in the 19th century, the gorilla was believed to be a myth. It turned out to be real. And even in our lifetimes, the giant squid was kind of a is it or is it not? Does it really exist or does it not exist? And it's been pretty much confirmed over the last couple decades that, yes, giant squid do exist, although they were somewhere in the borderlands between an actual recognized species and kind of a legendary species, and they became real. Yeah. But in all of those cases, there were legitimate scientists, right, interested in those things, as well as people who just thought they were cool. And maybe that's the difference in each of those cases. But maybe not. Let's jump into this now. So, as you know, I was in Scotland last week, and we actually spent 2 days, for various reasons, around Loch Ness. We were staying in Inverness, so we were close to Loch Ness the whole time, but we did like pretty much a whole day there, and then we had another day where we were riding around looking at other stuff, and you kept looking, and there was the loch. So I was looking a lot, okay, is what I'm saying. I was observing the loch every opportunity I got, and neither I nor my kids came away with anything definitive. Now, they're pretty sure they saw something here and there, but I didn't, and we got no photos, and we didn't bring back a baby or anything like that, kind of the stuff we were outside chance hoping for. So
a little baby Nessie to bring home.
Yeah, I thought that'd be pretty good. Hard to get through customs,
I was about to say, do you have anything to declare?
Oh, no. Nothing at all. That's sea monkeys. We just bought those there in the gift shop.
And they grew like crazy.
So I thought, well, let's talk about Nessie. And let's talk about some of these other monsters and just talk in scientific terms, because we had that show not too long ago about aliens where we said, what's the likelihood? What are the chances? And we had the maybe they don't exist case that was made and the maybe there's enough evidence that we should really look into this case that was made. And we were kind of straddling that uncertainty between those two positions. So I thought, well, let's do the same thing with something a little more out there or equally out there, however you want to look at it, which is some of our favorite monsters. So what are the chances that the Loch Ness Monster exists? And so I went to the source. If Wikipedia doesn't have an answer to your question, there's one great place to always go where you can always get an answer to any question. You know where that is, right? Go to Quora, right? Yeah, you'll get not only one answer, you get like a dozen answers. I mean, you get every possible answer. And I thought that was pretty good. Somebody actually had posted the question, how probable is the Loch Ness Monster on Quora? And, there's a whole thread. Well, I thought one estimate was a pretty good one. This is in line with where I would be probably. It said about 500 to 1. What do you think? Would you take those odds? Right? I'd bet $1 that Nessie exists, right? On 500 to 1 odds. Others said, no, there's a lot of evidence. There's been a lot of sightings. There's photographs. There's a registry. There's lots of reasons. People have been seeing it there since the medieval times, right? There's a lot of reasons to believe it's true. But then others come in and they go, no, absolutely not. No way does Nessie exists. So what's your take, Stephen? How probable do you think the Loch Ness Monster is?
I think the 500 to 1 number is pretty good. Now you can throw another 0 on there if you want to. It's very
or 2. Yeah.
Yeah. It's very, very improbable, but there's some, and you having been to the Loch and I've not, you could probably tell us that it's kind of a strange lake.
It is a very strange lake. It's a huge body of water. It doesn't look huge. It looks like a good-sized lake, but it's extremely deep and it's murky because of this peat that's in the water. So the water looks almost brown. So it's an ideal place to hide a monster.
There could be a Nessie 5 feet under that stuff and 5 feet under the water, and you would never know.
You would not see it. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. It would be an ideal lake to hide something. Now, as far as a dinosaur, that's your 50,000, 100,000, 5 million to 1 odds.
Yeah.
But maybe there are eels living in the loch, so who knows? Maybe there is a really good-sized species of eel that just hasn't been confirmed to exist yet. Certainly people have caught big fish and strange-looking fish over the years. So the idea that there might be a species of something...
Where there's a 20-foot eel that living in the loch, and every now and then it raises its head up out of the lake, and it looks like a long-necked plesiosaurus or whatever. I could buy that as a possibility.
That one nudges into 500 to 1 odds. Okay. To me, that's the scenario that gets you on the the really sure bet of 500 to 1 or so. It's like maybe it's that. Maybe there's some kind of freak eel in there. Again, for it to be a dinosaur or something like that, then you're into the millions to 1. I love the stories. I think it's great that this Irish saint sighted it in 565.
And apparently he ordered it back into the lake, and it listened and went into the lake. Of course,
did what he said. Well, he was a saint. I think that's important. Yeah. In Scotland, the part of the story that they tend to emphasize is that it was Irish, and therefore may have had a nip or two before the whole experience happened. But
well,
I think that's unworthy to point that out, especially about a saint, for heaven's sake. I go with he was a saint. He gave the order. The monster went back in. So there it is. Nessie, maybe the most likely, actually, of everything we're about to talk about. I don't know. We'll see. That's another interesting thing. We have not discussed these prior to this, so you might have a different opinion. But
right.
Okay. I just wanted to point out here. This was interesting. This story was just from earlier this year. Bizarre Nessie-like creature washes ashore in Georgia, and marine experts are mystified. So if you follow the link there, you can actually from there read about it. But also there's a link to another site that has the picture. And it's a creepy-looking thing that washed up on shore there, for sure, in that picture. But some experts looked at it and said it's probably a decomposing shark. So not to spoil it, but that's...
Yeah, sometimes when things are in the process of decomposing, they get pretty freaky looking.
They take on an odd shape. That's exactly what the guy said. It's like sometimes when sharks decompose, they take on a very odd shape. And that's probably what you're seeing there. So... There's a lot of different ways to see a monster. I guess that's it's kind of like finding pictures in the clouds, right?
Yeah.
Things washing up on shores all the time. Okay, so here's the next one. Why Bigfoot is unlikely only if you know what unlikely means. So this is a good essay in Scientific American. I don't want to get into this because it's too long, but just read it. And I think it's a really good discussion just of kind of the whole psychology of exploring monsters. It goes to a lot of what you were talking about before, Stephen, kind of the difference in mindset between someone who's seriously studying science and someone who just thinks Bigfoot is awesome, right? I mean, there's just...
Let's go out and see if we can take a picture or capture it or something.
Those are two very different ways of approaching the world, and it's important that there's a difference between them. The other story here, science professor explains why Bigfoot's likely not real. I just thought the argument here was really interesting. He says that a good reason to know that they're not real is because there's just too many sightings. That if there were that many of them, we would definitely have a lot of physical evidence by now. People are seeing them left and right, and we never get a dead Bigfoot body. We never get a foot or a head or fur or scat. Right? There's never any good, solid physical evidence that these things exist. So chances are they don't. I don't know. What do you think, Stephen? What's your personal connection?
Mostly when people think of Bigfoot monsters, they think of the Pacific Northwest. That's considered to be a spot that you're likely to find them. But we here in Louisiana, we have a bit of a claim to fame to a local Bigfoot. Falk is actually in southern Arkansas, but the range of this quote monster would include Louisiana. It's called the Boggy Creek.
He does not respect state lines. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, it does not. He does, it goes where he wants to. Yeah,
that's right.
Boggy Creek monster. You may have recalled there's a pseudo documentary in the early '70s that came out. That the Boggy Creek monster movie was about this particular monster.
Great film, by the way. Everyone, Legend of Boggy Creek. Check it out.
Yep. It was made in the early 1970s, and it's a product of that era. And it was made for about $160,000, I understand. And it's made millions and millions. It's sort of like Halloween that way. The movie Halloween. Yeah. Made for nothing makes millions. So what's my thought on these things? Maybe it's a ancient memory of other hominid species. In the lifetime of our species, there were other hominids around, and you pass those stories down. And Indians in the Pacific Northwest were known to use the Sasquatch as a boogeyman of sorts. Right. Throughout the world, whenever parents use the boogeyman, they're attempting to scare. They're warning children of real dangers in a way.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Little Red Riding Hood is basically you're not supposed to talk to the big bad wolf. Go straight to grandmother's house. The Indians in the Pacific Northwest were saying the Sasquatch lives around this mountain right here, Mount St. Helens. And don't go live around that thing. That's a dangerous area. Don't go there.
Boogeyman will the mountain will blow up.
The mountain will explode and blow you up. That's one thought about the usefulness of Sasquatch legend among the Indians is that they used it in that way. But
I think that there could very well be something to that. And I love the idea of kind of this ancient, almost genetic memory, right? It's Carl Jung archetype, a mythic archetype in our heads. That goes back to our almost pre-human ancestry, right, when we were encountering these other species carried through. Of course, now, when I think of Louisiana, I don't think of Bigfoot. You know who I think of? Is Dogman. Right, that's... to me, he's more down south, Kentucky, Dogman, Louisiana, Dogman, right? So...
Tell me about the Dogman. This is a new one on me. I know about Chupacabra down in Mexico. I don't know about the Dogman.
Okay.
He's supposed to be around here, huh?
Get ready to have your mind blown, and I don't even have time to do it. But you need to go to YouTube and just put Dogman in the search, okay, and just start watching the videos, okay? Get yourself an education on Dogman. What's interesting is actually I said down south, and I think of Dogman as down south, but very popular out west here too. The sightings, I think, have kind of moved in this direction. And okay, Dogman is a lot like Bigfoot, but he's more canine. Okay, he's human, but he's more canine. And the only reason I really wanted to bring him in is because I don't know that much about Dogman, to tell you the truth. But I was listening to Joe Rogan, and he had Bobcat Goldthwait on there. And I guess Bobcat Goldthwait is way into all this stuff. And he was talking about...
I think he's halfway Dogman anyway,
if anybody was going to be an expert on Dogman, right? I guess he was talking about how he goes to all these gatherings, right? And he had been to this Dogman gathering, this Dogman convention or conference or whatever it is. And then he went to a more standard, more mainstream Bigfoot one. And, of course, all the Bigfoot people, they just roll their eyes whenever the subject of Dogman comes up, okay?
You got to draw this line somewhere, Phil. Come on.
They just think that is the most ridiculous thing they've ever heard. So, whatever the odds of Bigfoot are, they're going to say that the odds of Dogman are less. However, I want you to follow this link and read the argument here. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to know that Bigfoot and Dogman are real. This is just one of the most wonderful things you'll ever read. This guy uses Erwin Schrödinger's argument about the cat. The cat that's both alive and dead at the same time. Schrödinger's cat, right? Okay, he uses that argument to prove that both Bigfoot and Dogman exist. In fact, the fact that there's both of them proves that they exist. Yeah, I cannot do the argument justice. You have to read it. It's just absolutely one of the most wonderful things you'll ever read.
Well, there is
check out the Dogman videos.
There is an honest-to-God condition where people, grow hair and all over their bodies and things like that. But that's not what we're talking about with those who talk about.
No, Dogman he's more of he's kind of a wolf. He's like the Wolfman, sort of.
I got
He's not a werewolf. He's a dogman. I think that's important too. I bet if you went to the Dogman conference and said, "So is this like a werewolf?" They'd roll their eyes, right? They'd be like, "No."
Like, come on, get
don't
real.
Be ridiculous. We're trying to have a serious conversation here, okay? So
exactly.
Everybody's got a line, right? Everybody's got a line that they draw. All right, and which finally takes us to one of my faves, Chupacabra. Okay. And this one is great because, just off the top of your head, where would you put the odds of Chupacabra existing, Stephen? Do you want to give it an odds at all? Any kind of likelihood or unlikelihood?
One of the things I like about, say, the Loch Ness Monster is the antiquity of it, right? And of course, you could say the same thing about Bigfoot, going all the way back to the Native Americans and Yeti. I mean, people have been talking about that and saying that this creature lives up in those mountains, or this for generations and generations and generations,
sure.
Thousands of years in some cases. Whereas Chupacabra has been around since the 90s. I suspect that if there were a weird creature, we would have been hearing about it from the Aztecs. Would have told us about it when Europeans first encountered them, right?
You would think this creature that sucks the blood out of goats, the goat sucker. And luckily for me, I learned about Chupacabra from the correct source, from the X-Files. Okay, so I was watching X-Files back in the late 90s. And on that show, they gave the impression that this story's been around forever, right? And at the time that show was made, it had been around for about a year and a half, okay? So
right.
So I was misinformed about Chupacabra. I always thought he was right up there. I always thought, well, he's like Bigfoot Loch Ness Monster sightings in 565. That's a pretty good vintage. That is a pretty well established thing. Well, this reporter here, follow this link over on the BBC site. This reporter decided to track it down because yes, there were never any Chupacabra sightings before 1995. And it started in Puerto Rico, and this guy found patient zero, okay? He found the first person who ever reported seeing Chupacabra, and it sounds like she was unduly influenced by the 1995 movie Species, which, Stephen, did not make it on our list of big summer movies a couple weeks ago, but maybe we
It did not. That's a shame. It was an interesting combination of sci-fi and horror, and
we might need to give it another look. But what she described was very much like the creature from there. And then about 10 years later, there were Chupacabra sightings in Mexico and in the Southwest in the U.S., and that was much more of a wolfy, doggy kind of a thing. So, in fact, she got freaked out by the movie, pretty much made the whole thing up. Everybody started seeing it all over Puerto Rico. It kind of died down. It was on the X-Files. Somebody caught a rerun out in Mexico, saw a dog, and...
probably with mange. And
right.
It took off again. Yeah, it's the chances. To me, if it's going to be real, if there's going to be a chance of it being real, it needs to have had some antiquity to it. That particular monster does not. It does not.
No, but what does that tell you about all the rest of them? If this whole thing could just come from nothing, right, from somebody getting freaked out by a movie, and then it becomes a whole thing, what are the chances on the rest of them, really? It seems to me that one kind of impacts it drives the odds down on all the rest of them.
It's fun to have something to talk about, something weird to talk about. Hence our whole show, kind of, right? And you embellish the truth sometimes to the point that it has very little basis in reality, and you tell an interesting ghost story, and it takes off from there. So. Yeah.
Here's what I will say is I don't think any of them are real. I think I can't rule it out, but I think it's extremely unlikely that any of these things actually exist. I wish Nessie was real. I wish Bigfoot was real. Dogman I can probably do without. And I think we're better off that Chupacabra doesn't exist, right? Because he just sounds just nasty, going around sucking the blood out of goats. But the fact that
What is your favorite cryptid of all? Would it be Nessie?
It could just be the proximity to the Scotland trip. So I'm very fond of Nessie right now. But lifetime, I probably got to go with Bigfoot. You know,
I got you.
I've been fascinated by Bigfoot my whole life, so I think it would probably be him. Although Dogman is an up-and-comer, I got to say. He's
well, something we haven't mentioned on this show is the purported dinosaurs in Africa. What do they call them? It translates. Their name translates to one who blocks the flow of the river.
Right. You hear about that every now and then. I didn't even think about that.
Mombi or something like that. I forget.
Yes. But the likelihood of them would be right up there with the rest of them, I would guess. I mean,
right.
Very low, right? How about you? What's your favorite monster?
The reason I brought that one up is that might be my favorite of
that
the
is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. The Mokele Mbembe. Mokele Mbembe. Yeah. Mbembe or something. And it's a purported sauropod living in Central Africa. And awesome. That would be pretty cool to find.
That would be cool. Well, that's just got such a King Kong feel to it, right? I mean, that's just got such a, in a mysterious foreign country, deep in the darkest jungle, there's dinosaurs living. I mean, you know what? I've changed my mind. I'm on board with you. That's my favorite too now. I think I like that one the best. I love them all. I wish one of them would turn out to be true. I hope they're all true, except maybe Chupacabra. Once again, I don't see that he adds anything really to the game board. But for now, I'm going to say I'm uncertain and tending towards they're fun to talk about, but probably not. Probably no monsters. But you know what? We'll keep looking at the loch, right? That's all we can do.
That's right.
Keep looking to see what there is. All right. Well, this has been fun, Stephen. It's been a great week. It's good to be back on the show, and we're going to be back again next week. We're going to have 3 brand new shows. Look forward to talking with you then. Look forward to being with you all. And until next time, live to see it.